Section 4, Gene Expression. You have learned that some traits can be passed from parents to their offsprings. So if you have a trait in common with your biological parents, did you inherit their proteins? The children in this family inherited the genes. Oh, I got to push it down here. It's a really cool picture. The children in this family inherited the genes that determine their traits from their parents. So you've got this baby and this man and this woman. And their traits combine to make these two children. Genes hold instructions for making products such as proteins, which determine the appearance of traits. Well, the answer is not quite. You didn't get the actual P protein that makes melanin from your biological parents, but you did get the instructions for how to make P protein from your biological parents. Remember that DNA is a substance that makes up the instructions for carrying out a cell's life processes. More specifically, DNA carries the instructions for how to make proteins. A gene is a segment of DNA that contains the instructions for making a product, like a protein or multiple proteins. Think of these genes as recipes for making different proteins. Just as with a recipe for baking, nothing gets made if no one reads it and actually follows the directions. A cell needs to read a gene and follow the instructions for it to have any effect. An expressed gene is a gene whose instructions has been followed by the cell to make a product. Gene expression usually results in the cell making a protein. Genes that are not expressed in a specific cell have no effect. Some genes are the recipes for a particular protein or part of a protein. Other genes are recipes for many different proteins. Still other genes act as switches that tell a cell whether to read or not to read other genes. In combination, the proteins that are made determine the physical traits that the person will have. Most traits are controlled by more than one gene. In simplified terms, genes are the instructions for making proteins, and these proteins determine someone's trait. An organism inherits its genes from its biological parents. Therefore, the organism inherits the information for building proteins that determine many of its traits. Sometimes you see the traits such as eye color that are passed on from parents to their offsprings. Other times, the traits are internal or too small to be seen, like the shape of hemoglobin, the red blood cells. The study of the inheritance of genes that results in certain traits is called genetics. All right, let's go to part 5. The location of genes. Where are these found? You scratch an itch on your arm. You may have just scratched off hundreds or thousands of cells from the surface of your skin. Cells are tiny, and yet inside every one of your living cells are the instructions on how to make you. Now understand that. One skin cell has all the instructions necessary to make you. Wow. How can something that fits in a tiny part of a tiny cell be responsible for making all of you? To answer that question, you first need to know where genes are located and how they are organized in the cell. Remember that genes are small sections of a strand of DNA. They're small sections of a strand of DNA. Humans have 46 strands of DNA in the nucleus of most of their cells. These long strands of DNA are wrapped around proteins, similar to the way that thread is wrapped around spools to keep it from tangling. Each of those long strands of DNA wrapped around proteins is called a chromosome. Okay. Figure 5. Humans have 46 chromosomes in the structure of their cell. Genes are found on chromosomes. Together, and here's this chromosome right here. There's 46 of those. Together, all the chromosomes in a cell carry all the genes that are the instructions for making all the proteins of the body. Chromosomes help to organize the DNA. Numbering chromosomes is a convenient way for scientists to map or label which genes are found on which chromosomes. For example, one of the genes that instructs a cell on how to make collagen can be found about halfway down chromosome 17. Even though the collagen is not made in every cell, this gene on chromosome 17 is found in nearly every cell of every human. As a group, all the chromosomes carry the instructions for how to make all the proteins in the body. Right before a cell divides, its chromosomes wind up very tightly. They wind up very tightly so that the DNA can be split more easily between the two cells. In this state, the chromosomes have a stripe pattern if they are stained with a dye. So as in figure 5, chromosomes will be shown as striped, colorful bars.